In the heart of the bustling city, where streets hummed with the rhythm of daily life, Thomas Harrington, a retired schoolteacher, found himself in front of the shop he had admired from afar all his life, Giovanni's Tailoring. It was an establishment renowned for its exquisite craftsmanship and timeless elegance, where every suit was a piece of art tailored to perfection. With his gentle demeanor and eyes reflecting years of wisdom, Thomas stood there momentarily, taking in the sight. The shop's display window showcased suits of various hues, each telling a meticulous attention-to-detail story. He had passed by Giovanni's many times, always with a wistful longing. Today, spurred by the courage that often comes with the realization of time slipping away, he decided to step in. A little bell chimed as he pushed open the door, heralding his entrance into a world he had only dreamt of. The interior was as he had imagined, walls lined with rolls of delicate fabrics, mannequins dressed in elegant attire, and the air filled with the subtle scent of wool and linen. And at the counter stood a young tailor, his hands skillfully working on a piece of cloth.
"I've come for a suit,"
Thomas began hesitantly, his voice barely above a whisper.
"Something special for my 70th birthday."
The tailor, noticing Thomas's modest attire and the signs of age etched on his face, gave a cursory glance and replied, "I'm afraid our suits might be out of your range. Perhaps there's another place better suited for you." The words, delivered with a polite yet dismissive tone, struck Thomas like a cold breeze. He felt a tightness in his chest, a mixture of embarrassment and a deep sense of loss. This shop, which he had held in high esteem, had just reflected to him the harsh realities of societal judgments. Trying to mask his disappointment, Thomas nodded quietly and turned to leave. As he stepped out, his eyes caught a glimpse of a suit in the window, a beautiful navy blue piece with subtle pinstripes. It was the suit he had always imagined himself wearing, exuding a quiet confidence. Walking away from Giovanni's, Thomas felt a sorrow weighing his heart. The suit in the window, now a symbol of unfulfilled dreams, seemed to watch him go, a silent witness to the harsh judgments based on appearances. His vision of celebrating his milestone birthday in a suite from Giovanni's Tailoring, which had once seemed like a touch of magic waiting to happen, had vanished, leaving him with a profound sense of what might have been. After leaving Giovanni's, Thomas meandered through the city's cobblestone streets, his heart heavy with the sting of rejection. The crisp autumn air, tinged with the scent of fallen leaves, did little to lift his spirits. Then, in his aimless wandering, he stumbled upon a quaint little shop tucked away in a less frequented part of town. The sign read, "Harrison's Haberdashery." Its letters faded but carried a charm that beckoned Thomas closer. Pushing open the door, he was greeted by a warm, inviting atmosphere, a stark contrast to the aloof elegance of Giovanni's. The shop was modest, the decor reminiscent of a bygone era, with wooden counters and antique sewing machines on display. Behind the counter stood a man, perhaps in his late 50s, with keen eyes and a welcoming smile. He introduced himself as George Harrison, the owner. "I'm looking for a suite," Thomas explained, his voice still tinged with the remnants of his earlier disappointment. "It's for my 70th birthday." "Then you've come to the right place," George said, his tone genuine. "Let's find you something special." As George took Thomas's measurements, they began to chat. Thomas learned that George had inherited the shop from his parents, who had passed away when he was just a young man. George spoke of the struggles he faced in those early years, trying to keep the business afloat while grappling with the loss of his parents.
"The shop was all I had left of them,"
George confided, his hands expertly selecting fabric. "It was tough, juggling grief and the business demands. But this place, it has a piece of my soul." Thomas listened, deeply moved by George's resilience and love for his shop. As they talked, A sense of camaraderie developed between them, two souls connected by the shared understanding of life's trials and triumphs. After some time, George presented a suit to Thomas. It was a classic design, tailored to accentuate Thomas's stature, making him look distinguished yet timeless. Trying it on, Thomas felt a transformation, not just in appearance but in spirit. The suit fit him perfectly, each seam speaking of the care and dedication George had put into it. "Thank you, George," Thomas said, looking at himself in the mirror. "I can't remember the last time I felt this dignified." "It's not just the suet," George replied with a smile. "It's the man wearing it. You bring it to life." As Thomas left the shop, suite in hand, he felt a renewed sense of self. Harrison's Haberdashery, with its humble charm and the compassionate soul of its owner, had given him not just a suit, but a story of resilience and human connection, something far more valuable than any attire. Rejuvenated by his experience at Harrison's Haberdashery, Thomas continued his walk through the city, the new suit in hand, casting a spring in his step. The sun was beginning its descent, casting a golden hue over the bustling streets. Then, a voice called out to him, laced with a hint of surprise and joy. "Mr. Harrington? Thomas Harrington, is that you?" Turning, Thomas saw a sharply dressed young man in his early 30s, his face breaking into a wide smile. It took Thomas a moment, but recognition dawned. It was Daniel Thompson, one of his brightest students from years ago, now apparently a picture of success. "Daniel! My, how you've grown!" Thomas exclaimed, feeling a swell of pride. They exchanged pleasantries, and Daniel shared snippets of his life since school, his climb up the corporate ladder, recent engagement, and venture into entrepreneurship. As they talked, Thomas couldn't help but notice the shop they stood in front of. It was Giovanni's Tailoring. "Mr. Harrington, I own this place now," Daniel said, noticing Thomas's gaze. "Why don't you come in? I'd love to show you around." Thomas hesitated, the memory of his earlier rejection at the shop lingering. But Daniel's enthusiasm and the bond of their teacher-student relationship nudged him forward. The same young tailor who had dismissed Thomas earlier looked up as they entered. His eyes widened slightly in recognition, and a hint of embarrassment colored his cheeks. Oblivious to the exchange, Daniel led Thomas through the shop, proudly showcasing the finest suits and fabrics. Finally, they reached a group of tailors, and Daniel announced, "Everyone, I want you to meet Mr. Thomas Harrington, the best teacher I ever had. He's the reason I pursued my dreams." The room fell silent, the staff exchanging glances. The young tailor who had turned Thomas away stepped forward, and his demeanor changed, a mixture of respect and shame in his eyes. "Mr. Harrington, I'm sorry about what happened earlier today. I didn't realize," he stammered. Thomas held up a hand, stopping him mid-apology. "It's quite all right. It led me to another wonderful experience," he said, glancing at the suit he had acquired from George. Sensing the undercurrents, Daniel looked between his old teacher and staff. "Mr. Harrington, if there's anything in the shop that catches your eye, please consider it a gift from me." But Thomas, feeling a sense of closure and contentment with his earlier purchase, declined. "Thank you, Daniel, but I've already found what I was looking for." As they left Giovanni's, Daniel apologized for his staff's behavior, but Thomas reassured him, emphasizing the importance of humility and kindness. They parted ways with a promise to stay in touch, and Thomas walked away with a heart full of memories and a renewed sense of worth. That evening, as Thomas reflected on the day's events, he realized the profound impact of his teaching career. He had shaped lives and instilled values, and in his autumn years, the seeds he had sown were bearing fruit in the most unexpected ways. His journey to find a suit had become a journey of reconnection with his past, a reminder of the enduring influence of a teacher. The case from Harrison's Haberdashery, now hanging in his wardrobe, was not just a garment. It symbolized the respect he had earned, the lives he had touched, and the unexpected paths of kindness that life can take.